Welcome to Inside View. I'm your host, Dana Nichols, editor at the Calaveras Enterprise, and tonight I'm very pleased to have with me Kevin White. Welcome, Kevin.
Nice to meet you.
And Chris, pardon me, I got that wrong. It's Kevin Cornwell.
Yep, that's okay.
Kevin Cornwell and Kristin White. And you two are a married couple, and you're both optometrists. And you recently moved here to work at an optometry practice in Angels Camp.
Correct.
So tell me why you did that and what you're hoping to achieve here in Calaveras County with that work.
Sure. So I'm actually originally from Florida, and for about the last 10 years or so, I've been visiting Calaveras County. I have an aunt and uncle and some cousins in Murphy's, and about my first time here was, I think, 2008, and just immediately fell in love with the area. Just the difference in the weather coming from back east, and the opportunities to go hiking and do things in the mountains, biking, running, that sort of thing. And this area has kind of always been on my radar for about the last 10 years or so. And when I first came here, I was still finishing up my undergraduate degree, so I wasn't really in a position to do any changes geographically just yet. And then after I finished up with my bachelor's degree, I ended up going to optometry school in Boston, where I met Kristin, and still kind of just kept in touch. One of maybe my second or third time visiting Calaveras County, I actually, through word of mouth, I was introduced to Dr. Chris Iwata, and I think it was in my second year of optometry school, and so I just kind of kept in touch with them, and it wasn't until this fall that we were kind of in a position to make it work by coming here and working with him. And we both went to school in Boston at the New England College of Optometry.
Right.
So between living in Florida most of my life, that was in a pretty big city. Going to Boston for optometry school, that was a city. So for the last 8 or 10 years or so, I've kind of got my fix of the cities, and kind of wanted something a little bit more laid back, where I could still have the opportunity to go to a big city if I wanted to, but to just kind of sort of be in an area where the pace of life's a little bit slower and more peaceful.
Well, welcome. I hope you enjoy it. Now, you're not from Florida, Kristin.
Nope.
So tell me about your path.
So I'm from New Jersey. I went to undergrad in Boston and then stayed there through optometry school and continued working there for a little bit afterwards. So I was there for about 11 years, and then we spent last year living and working on the Zuni Indian Reservation with Indian Health Service hospitals.
Wow.
And now here we are.
Did you have to learn any Zuni?
I learned very little. Most people spoke English, and they had translators for people who didn't.
Got you.
Yeah.
But that's truly another world. It's another culture.
It was a very big culture shock.
Now, but you two do speak at least one other language. You speak Spanish, am I correct?
We do.
Tell me how you came to speak Spanish.
So I've always studied it just from probably 6th grade, and then I minored it in college and studied abroad in Spain. So I spent about a year in Spain altogether between undergrad, and I also studied there during optometry school as well. We had a rotation there. And from between living there and doing different mission trips and things, that I've come to learn Spanish.
Well, tell me about the mission trips, because I understand you've had some where you've been together.
Yeah, so as students, each of us have done different mission trips with our school to different parts of Central America, Dominican Republic, Belize, Honduras, and now one of our goals is that we're trying to help start a sustainable clinic in Nicaragua in a small town called El Sauce, where we have gone the past 2 summers, and the last time we were there, we met a young man who's studying optometry in that town. So our goal now is to try to help support him, and we're going to try to apply for some grants to get some more equipment donated. We've gotten some donated, and we want to get more so that by the time he finishes school, we can help start a clinic in this town where there's currently no eye care for a couple hours in either direction.
Wow. That's big. And when you go to a place like El Sauce or Belize, are you able to provide full-blown optometric services like we're used to here in the U.S.? Do you have the resources to do that?
I'd say yes and no. It kind of depends on the group that we've gone with or the setting. So in some cases, we bring recycled glasses, and we'll do our full eye exam in terms of examining the health of the eyes and referring to local ophthalmologists in cases where people need surgery, for example. And so some cases we bring recycled glasses. In some cases, like in El Sauce, we partnered with a local mobile optometry clinic that had the ability to make glasses where it was needed, and we also determined from that trip that about 70% of the people could benefit just from pre-made over-the-counter reading glasses. So in some cases those benefit people for seeing in the distance as well as for close-up. So just the prefabricated glasses, which you can purchase for about 50 cents a pair from specific sites that make these glasses for mission-type trips. So in some cases we use more of those pre-made glasses. And then I recently got back from Peru with a different group that was a really big organization, and they actually bring in all the equipment to make brand new glasses for everybody right on site. So it's kind of been a little bit of everything.
The custom-made type that we're more familiar with here in the U.S.
Absolutely.
I'm astonished at how inexpensive the pre-made can be.
Yeah, me too.
There's multiple organizations here in the United States that if you buy the prefabricated glasses in bulk, you get that price, 50 cents, 75 cents a piece.
And they're designed specifically for mission-type trips, so it's not that anyone could just order them online for themselves at that price.
Right, but still you get a good enough fit to serve the person's need and to restore their ability to read or work or whatever it is.
Right, yeah.
And when you go to Central America or Peru, are you seeing pretty much the same types of issues that you see here in the population? Are there any differences particularly?
A lot of the stuff we see here in the United States, we see abroad as well. We see diabetic eye disease here, we see glaucoma, we see macular degeneration. But I think the fact that a lot of the populations we encounter abroad go longer without seeing a doctor if they've ever seen a doctor. So usually in some cases, some of those eye conditions are a little bit more advanced or severe. So like if someone has advanced glaucoma, instead of starting them on one eye drop, we may give them half the stash just to hold them over, because who knows when they'll see an eye doctor again.
Well, I'm certainly grateful for eye care. I got my first pair of glasses when I was 5, and I've used them ever since, and it's been absolutely crucial to my career. That's a huge, because I have to stare at computer screens all the time. So thank you to optometry. So tell me about your work here. Are you guys hoping to stay here a long time? I mean, what's your plan?
Yeah, we've only been here a couple months so far, but yeah, we love the area. We're tired of moving around, and we're happy here, so we'd like to make this a place we stay for a long time.
I think the most important part of figuring out where you want to settle is, are you happy with your job, but also are you happy outside of your job with your hobbies and passions? And I think I can maybe speak a little bit more than Kristin, because I've visited here a little bit more frequently, but we definitely got the whole fix for the outdoors and adventures outdoors covered here. And the ability to be happy outside of work, certainly the criteria is met in Calaveras County. So,
what adventures have you tried so far?
Mostly hiking.
In the past, we've done a lot of hikes and some running, but in the past I've gone up to the lakes and reservoirs, kayaking, canoeing, hiking up I think Alpine County, and I did Mr. Frog's Wild Ride, a couple of the local 5K and 10K runs, and I have a couple friends who live in this area who do triathlons, and I've done a couple races with them as well.
How about you? Have you had a chance to do any of this?
Well, he's been here a lot more than me, so I've done more of the hiking and running. I'm looking forward to getting involved in some of the triathlons and biking things, but I haven't had the opportunities to yet.
Excellent. Now, so of the places you've done your missionary work, which of the ones were you there the longest?
I guess because in Nicaragua that we're starting to go back to this same community, that's probably the one we've been to longest, whereas the other ones, when you're going with a different group, you're working with the Ministry of Health. Well, you're always working with the Ministry of Health in the host country. But you are assigned to a particular organization who then kind of partners you up with an area that's most in need based on how many other groups have come to the country and things like that. So it's hard to really have any sort of continuity with some of the other groups that we've done, which is why we're excited about this particular town in Nicaragua, where now we can start to develop relationships. And we're working with a medical doctor in this town and a nonprofit in the community that offers us the space that we do the exams in. And they help us work with the Ministry of Health to get equipment into the country and all that sort of thing.
Nicaragua in the last 30 or 40 years has gone through a lot. I mean, there was a terrible earthquake in the 70s. There was a revolution when Somoza got overthrown, the dictator. What are things like now?
I'd say of the places that we've done eye care in, that the people in this particular town, and maybe it's all of Nicaragua, are some of the most appreciative people that we've worked with. They're so welcoming, and it's so fun to be there. It's really just everyone gives you big hugs and has big smiles for you, whereas not to say people in other countries were not appreciative, but I think culturally sometimes things don't come across as obviously appreciative.
Is the country prospering? Is there still a lot of poverty? I mean, what's the economy like?
Yeah, there's definitely still a lot of poverty, but from our understanding, it is a lot safer. We felt much safer in Nicaragua, for example, than we did in Honduras, and we saw a lot of problems in Dominican Republic that we didn't see in Nicaragua. So I do think overall people are doing better. I think there's still a lot of poverty there. But I think that Nicaragua has kind of avoided some of the problems that other Central American countries have run into with gangs and things like that. So I think that makes it a lot safer in a lot of cases.
Interesting. And coffee? Did you drink the coffee at all?
Oh, yeah.
Coffee and the chocolate are great.
Yeah, okay.
Something to look forward to every time we go.
Yeah, I kind of remembered that. So there's something about the soil, I guess, that makes it really good.
Yeah.
Now, tell me a little bit more about New Mexico. So were you living on the reservation or traveling onto the reservation?
So we were living on the Zuni Indian Reservation. And so as Kristin mentioned earlier, she did a residency in Boston. The New Mexico chapter last year was my residency year, whereas it was like an optional year of training for optometrists with an emphasis on ocular and systemic disease like diabetes, high blood pressure, the various autoimmune conditions like lupus. All these things can show up in your eye, and our time at the Indian Health hospitals was very heavy on the ocular disease.
Do you guys have different specialties somewhat? I mean, am I hearing that?
For the most part, we do pretty similar as far as our interests and niches within optometry. I maybe have a slightly more experience with like custom contact lenses, like for conditions like keratoconus, whereas Kristin has done a lot more with like low vision, where people use different sort of visual aids like telescopes and magnifying glasses and magnifying lenses for people with like advanced end-stage eye disease like glaucoma and macular degeneration.
Excellent. I want to know more about this clinic in El Sauce. Did you have to like create an organization to do this, or how is this happening?
So I think it was 2015, we went on a fact-finding mission all throughout. I think we visited Honduras and Nicaragua specifically. We talked to maybe half a dozen clinics, nonprofits, just with the general idea of what would things look like to start a more long-term sustainable eye care in these areas. With the motivation stemming out of the frustration with some of the shorter-term trips we've done as students, where we would go to these places for 5 days or a week, and we would do our thing, but then there was really no continuity of care. There was no follow-up. And that kind of motivated us to want to get involved and kind of help put all the right people in the right places to create a more long-term eye clinic. And El Sauce was where we landed. We have several friends from kind of a random tangent, but there's a big connection with Rochester, New York, in this community in El Sauce. A lot of nonprofits up there are funding a whole slew of projects in El Sauce. One person in particular is a friend of Kristin's who actually officiated our wedding, but she kind of connected us with some crucial people in El Sauce, one of which was the town's private medical doctor, and she also had connections with the Ministry of Health. So one thing led to another, and it just seemed, as far as the infrastructure to start this eye clinic in El Sauce was the easiest out of all the other avenues that we looked into.
So we basically spent the year before that applying to different or requesting from different ophthalmic technical companies that make all of the equipment, requesting donations, and we received quite a number of donations. We also recently got married, and on our wedding registry had a bunch of items that we needed for the clinic, and since a lot of our friends are optometrists, a quarter of our wedding was optometrists, so they really supported the cause.
That's nice.
So we basically went to Nicaragua this past summer with a suitcase filled with eye equipment and had our little mobile clinic.
The handheld version of what you see in your typical eye doctor's office.
And then we donated all that to the nonprofit in this town that we're working with. So we don't have a nonprofit in the United States yet. That's something we might consider in the future, depending how things go. So we donated all the equipment there. As of now, the current eye care state in this town, which before was nothing, is a mobile Nicaraguan optometrist, which is quite different from optometry here. So optometrists in most other countries basically just give glasses prescriptions but aren't trained in the disease or eye health. That's more ophthalmology. So right now, every month, I think once a month for 1 or 2 days, there's this mobile optometrist who's been visiting from a different city, who we worked with while we were there. And he has a way of getting glasses pretty inexpensively, custom made and also pre-made, depending what people need. But like we were mentioning, that we're working with an optometry student to try to, when we go back down, we want to spend a couple days just training him, whereas still in the early phases, but we'll hope to.
So this will end up hopefully being a permanent clinic.
Yeah, that would be the intent.
And now, and I guess what you're telling me, am I correct that in the past work you've been able to go for a few days and give a diagnosis and maybe give a pair of glasses, but that there's not the continuity, not somebody to go back to. And what you're talking about with the degenerative eye things is that they need follow-up care
right,
to manage
absolutely.
it.
And we actually networked. There's this one thing led to another when we were talking with optometrists, ophthalmologists, and other nonprofits in Nicaragua. But one thing led to another, and we got linked up with this ophthalmology group in the capital of Managua, which is about 3-ish hours away. And we set things up to where at the end of our week-long clinic in El Sauce, this past time we were there in August of 2016. We hope to go again next summer. But we kind of set aside all the people who we thought needed some follow-up care with a problem with their retina, cataract surgery, glaucoma, that sort of thing. Anyone who potentially needed surgery, had them come back on the last day, and this ophthalmology group came and just examined everybody again and kind of pre-screened or decided who's going to get cataract surgery and who isn't. And they have this program where they, for indigenous people who maybe don't have the means to pay the full price for cataract surgery, they do a discounted rate of, I think it's like $100 for the entire cataract surgery with all the eye drops and transportation to and back from the capital. And I think this time around the town's medical doctor, who we actually use space in her clinic in El Sauce to do this eye clinic on the side. She had a couple extra rooms. She orchestrated, I think, an ambulance from one of the nearby hospitals to bring all these people down to the capital for cataract surgery. So that was pretty exciting.
So we had gotten more donations, mostly from our wedding, and kind of one role we see ourselves in is kind of helping to facilitate the clinic in this town. So we realized that a sustainable option is not for us to be there full time.
Right.
That's one option, certainly, but then what happens when we leave? Then they're back to square one. So,
right.
Teach a man to fish, right? So we're trying to help this student so that by supporting getting equipment and things lined up and getting referral sources lined up so that when he's out that we could have a full eye clinic in this town.
And of course, you have to figure out how to make it sustainable for this person too. He has to earn a living,
Right,
somehow.
exactly.
Right,
So
excellent.
probably start off with his salary being paid through a grant, basically.
Okay.
And there are several organizations, U.S., well, actually just international, not necessarily U.S. organizations, that provide funding for just this type of thing, so, sustainable projects, because
Excellent.
that's kind of the wave that mission eye care is moving. How can we make something more long-lasting?
Excellent. And we've used the term mission. Is it actually affiliated with any denomination, or is it a secular mission? I mean, how?
Yeah, I guess when we're using the mission, we kind of mean like a clinic
Okay.
mission. Yeah, they're
We've
sort
done-
of used we're using it interchangeably.
The trips we did in optometry school, we did it with Christian groups, we did it with secular groups, but right now it's just kind of sort of on our own volition. We're not affiliated with any sort of program or nonprofit, I guess. But
So you guys are kind of getting to know this web of international organizations and national organizations and how to weave things together.
We have some mentors, and we're trying to learn it. Yeah.
there's actually a doctor, an optometrist in Southern California, who's been a great mentor with what we're doing in Nicaragua. He himself has actually been doing stuff in Nicaragua for the last maybe 15 or 20 years.
Yeah.
And initially, we just kind of wanted this like a volunteer thing. We didn't really want to create business plans and wear the hats of like business people. But it turns out that unless you have like hard data as far as what it would cost to like pay an optometrist in Nicaragua for the year, or what it costs to give eye drops or glasses, unless you have all that data, it's really just going to be Kristin and I going down like 5 days per year, and that's it. Whereas to obtain grant funding, like she mentioned earlier, we're starting to realize that.
Well, so you're trying to get this thing to be a sustainable thing, and that's a whole lot more complicated than donating a little bit of equipment or a few hours of your time.
Right.
So you're basically learning about international development and business.
Right, and our last trip there, we were intentional about keeping statistics as far as ages of all the patients, gender, what their prescriptions were, that sort of thing. What sort of eye diseases, what did we give eye drops out for, who did we refer for surgery, and that sort of thing, with hopes of using that data as ammunition to get grant funding in the future.
It's challenging. I have a friend who lives in Murphy's who's done international healthcare work. It was, I think, cervical cancer stuff in India that she was doing for a long time, and had a whole program to develop the capacity of rural clinics to address that. And it was not a simple thing. Ended up having to do a lot of that kind of international relationship building, development work, building capacity with agencies. It wasn't just a matter of teaching the skill. So I really wish you luck and hope you have success, because it's not a simple thing.
Right.
And you may, I don't know, have you gotten familiar at all with the healthcare issues going on in Calaveras County? I mean, we have a public healthcare district that's having to renegotiate its lease with the hospital. Have you heard about all that?
Loosely, I think.
Loosely.
Yeah.
Well, so there's things going on here that affect the durability and the viability long term of the clinics, and it's a challenging environment. I think that the healthcare district has its work cut out for it. They're going to be deciding how to renegotiate the lease to operate the hospital, but then there's also these clinics that are related to it, and that's the main access point for people to get a lot of care, including, I would assume, referrals to go see an optometrist. Okay, you're having this, you better go see an optometrist.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So I'm sure you'll get to learn a little bit more about that. Let's see, what else did I want to ask you about? What else should people know about you here? What would you like people to know about you as you settle in Calaveras County?
I guess professionally, one thing that is sometimes not as well understood is really what an optometrist does. So an optometrist, most people think of them as someone you go to for your glasses and contacts, which we certainly do that. But also we take care of eye infections, so red eyes, contact lens related problems like ulcers, Oftentimes people will get metal or get some foreign object inside their eye, and we're your go-to for that too. So any sort of ocular emergency. We also manage conditions like macular degeneration, keratoconus. We can treat glaucoma. We can treat infections of the eye that require oral antibiotics. So the profession has changed a lot over the last.
I don't know what keratoconus is.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what
sure.
that is?
Sure. Yeah, I just threw that word out there. So keratoconus is a progressive genetic condition related to the cornea, which is the front of the eye, where it becomes progressively cone-shaped, and that distorts the vision. And like Kevin was mentioning, often in the early stages requires specialty type of contact lenses that have to fit over that distorted cornea to kind of reshape the front of the eye and allow for the light to reach the back of your eye to have a clearer image. Some people go on to need more specialized treatment like a corneal transplant, because that cone-shaped progression is causing the cornea to become so thin that it's not safe.
What age is the onset?
Usually the second to third decade, so teens
Young
to
adults
20s
to teens,
usually,
okay.
yeah. But sometimes it can be later.
I'll be darned. Anything else you guys would like to share? Have you found hiking companions aplenty?
We've with my relatives here, we've done a lot of outdoor activities. But just to echo what Kristin said, yeah, optometry is a growing profession. There's a lot of new and exciting things coming out as far as our scope of practice. There's one of the latest things on the horizon is specialty contact lenses that measure your eye pressure. Like you keep them in at all times, or I think you may just keep one in, but it takes a constant reading of your eye pressure to monitor for glaucoma. They're also researching one that measures your blood glucose. I'm not sure how this is going to work, but like for diabetics, that's another interesting and exciting thing coming out. And aside from international volunteer humanitarian endeavors, we're also excited for just to put the pieces of the puzzle together to do local and domestic things as well. We're actually networking with the county nurses to maybe create a program where kids who maybe failed their vision screening but don't have insurance or maybe don't have the right insurance can still have access to an eye exam and glasses. So that'll be pretty exciting. And then
that is awesome.
Yeah, and then VSP Vision Insurance, they're headquartered in Sacramento. They have several mobile buses with like an eye exam room in the back and a glasses lab in the front where they do stuff all around the country, but we've done several of those clinics as well up in the Sacramento area.
So you might do that here?
We're trying to.
We're almost out of time.
Okay, we're trying to do that.
Excellent. Kevin, thank you so much.
It was great meeting you, and this was a
Kristin,
pleasure.
Thank you.
And I'm sure Dr. Iwata is my optometrist,
Oh,
so I'm
great.
sure I'll meet you at some point. Thank you very much. This has been Inside View. I'm your host, Dana Nichols. Good night.